Hello everybody, this is Professor Quine and this is the webinar on compound sentences. The compound sentence equation is up on the screen right now. It's independent clause plus independent clause. So make sure that you have you've listened to all of the webinars on parts of speech and on the independent clause webinar before you go ahead and listen to this one, because you have to have all of that information under your belt, okay, to understand this. All right, the independent clauses you can't just choose any independent clauses to form into a compound sentence. Remember, compound means two. You're taking two independent clauses and making them one sentence. You're hooking them together to make them one sentence. Instead, the two independent clauses have to be coordinate. I've already talked to you about coordination in an old webinar and another webinar that I've posted on YouTube. In essence, we're talking about of equal importance and close in meaning. You are not going to be able to put together Joe Biden as vice president and I like green tennis shoes, right? I mean, they're both sentences, but they don't really seem to fit together, right? So they have to be coordinate, meaning of equal importance and close in meaning. Write that down. Write that down. When you're compounding independent clauses, they have to be of equal importance and close in meaning. Okay, fair warning, write it down. Okay, good. All right, now, there are actually three ways to compound a sentence. I only teach two of them. I will tell you the third way is just to stick a semicolon between the two, but often that leads to problems. Students sometimes put two sentences together that need a little bit of something between them. So I don't teach those other two. I only teach these two, method one and method two. That's my terminology. Method one is comma fanboys. Remember the mnemonic fanboys? The memory aid fanboys, for and nor but or yet so. For and nor but or yet so. If you don't know that one, go back and look at the parts of speech webinar on conjunctions. And then there's method two, semicolon. Semi means half, right? So a full colon looks like this. Hold on, let me write one up on the screen. That's a colon. This is a semicolon because it's half of a colon, right? The colon has two dots. The semicolon only has one, so that's half, right? Okay. So anyway, method two is semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma. And some examples, I've already given you some examples of conjunctive adverbs, but words like however and therefore and actually you can have more than one word, as a result. A phrase can do it, consequently, subsequently, in addition, furthermore, moreover. All of those are, they're just some of the examples of conjunctive adverbs that you can use depending on the meaning of the sentence that you're trying to get across, okay? But remember, conjunctive adverbs are used with this punctuation pattern, semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma. So let's give it a try. Here's two sentences. Here are two sentences. Sam painted the barn, Sarah painted the house. I think we can agree that these are both independent clauses. Here's the verb, here's, and here's the subject. Forms a complete thought, right? There we go. And then here's another subject right here, and here's a verb, and that forms a complete thought. Both of them stand on their own, so on and so forth. So I would say that they are both independent clauses. I also think they're coordinate. In other words, I think they're close in meaning and of equal importance. Don't you? I mean, I can see the relationship between these two. So what I want you to do right now is to pause the webinar and go hook these together using method one, and then hook these together using method two. In other words, hook these together using a comma and a fanboy, okay? And then go back and hook these together using a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma. So give it a try. Come back. I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes. Come back and then listen to the answer, okay? Okay, let's get started. So let's say I wanted to make a method 1 compound sentence. Well, we know that method 1 requires what? That we do a comma and the appropriate fanboy, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. You have to choose one. So I think that this could be a situation where and, which is the most popular fanboy, could be used. So what I'm going to do is get rid of that period and make that a comma and put in and now I have a compound sentence, method 1. That's a method 1 compound sentence. That's all there is to it. But notice that this is not just one independent clause. This is two independent clauses. They kept their subject and their verb. Do you see the difference? So the yellow is the first independent clause, the red is the second independent clause. They kept their integrity, they kept intact, they kept all their parts. All I did was that method 1 combination. Okay, now let's go back and let's say that I assign to you a method 2 compound sentence. Well, what are we going to do? Well, instead of putting a period where a comma where that period is, we're going to put in a semicolon. And let's use another one that means and. You can't use a fanboy with method 2. You've got to use a conjunctive adverb. Let's go back and look at some of those conjunctive adverbs. What about in addition or furthermore or moreover? All of those mean and. So let's go and use in addition. What do I put after in addition? A comma. Remember, method 2 is semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma. So I just did that. Put them together, and there's my method 2 compound sentence. Sam painted the barn, semicolon, in addition, comma, Sarah painted the house. Got it? Let's do one more practice. Here are two sentences, two independent clauses. I like coffee. Here's my verb, which happens to be a regular verb, right? If you listen to the part of speech webinar on verbs, you know about that. And love is also a regular verb. And I, the singular first person subject pronoun I is my subject in this sentence, okay? So I've got two independent clauses standing on their own, forming complete thoughts. They have subjects and verbs. They end in a relevant mark of end punctuation, and they seem to be coordinate. They seem to have something to do with each other, and they seem to be of equal importance. So I say that they can be made into a compound sentence. Now, what you are not doing is this. Do not do this. And don't do this. Because what you're doing there, first of all, is dropping one of the words. Notice in the first independent clause you like coffee, and in the second independent clause you love tea. Those are two different words. So I don't want you to drop one of those words, okay? I also don't want you to squish them into one independent clause like these two do. I want you to make these into compound sentences, method 1 and method 2. Pause the tape, pause the webinar, go and try it, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, let's get started. So if I'm going to do a method 1, now notice I like coffee, but I love tea. Okay, so I think I could use and there if I wanted to, you know, just to say I like coffee and I love tea, but I'm going to show you how just a word can change meaning. Using but there, you got a comparison now, right? You know, okay, coffee's great, but tea is wonderful is what you're saying there. So this is a method 1, and you've got that comma and that fanboy there, joining those two independent clauses together. Now let's say that this is a test and I said, no, I don't want you to do a method 1, I want you to do a method 2. Well, what you would do then is go back to your list of conjunctive adverbs and find one that kind of means but. And I say, however, is kind of a, you know, the same thing as but. Remember, with method 2, you cannot use a fanboy, all right, to join those two sentences. You have to use a conjunctive adverb. So let's go back down here. And let's change that period to a semicolon. Remember, that's the way you do that with method 2. Type in however. What goes after however? Comma, and then you have I love tea. So there's your method 2 compound sentence. Okay? So they're pretty easy to do. It takes a little practice sometimes, especially with method 2, but they're pretty easy to do. Now, I need for you to be careful. I want you to avoid these kinds of errors. First of all, there's the run-on, which is also called the fuse sentence, and many students think a run-on sentence has something to do with sentence length. It has nothing to do with sentence length. A run-on sentence can be a short sentence. For instance, let me take our I like coffee and tea sentence here. Let's move it down here for a second, and let's go ahead and put that back like this. Now, if you write the sentence like that, I like coffee, I love tea, and forget to put any comma and fanboy between those two, or a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma, you've written a run-on sentence, also referred to as a fuse sentence. Notice these are two very short sentences you've run together. That has nothing to do with sentence length. It has to do with sentence structure. Did you hear that? Because that could show up on a quiz. Lots of this stuff could show up on a quiz, but I like what I just said. I think that I could put that on a quiz. Yeah, it has to do with sentence structure. So be careful. It has nothing to do with sentence length. Now here's another kind of run-on. Notice that you forgot to put the comma in there, right? So that's another kind of run-on. And let's see, what about this? There's another kind of run-ons. You see what I'm saying? Run-ons are when you just jam the sentences together. They have nothing to do with sentence length. It's all about sentence structure. So that's the run-on sentence. Now here's another kind of error, and it's called the comma splice error. And I think some of you I've already talked to about them, because a few of you have made these errors in your writing, and so you kind of had an early lesson in them. There you go. That's a comma splice. A comma splice is when you join the two sentences with just a comma. What did you forget to put in? The fanboy, right? Or maybe you did this. Now what did you do? You forgot that the pattern of punctuation should be semicolon, conjunctive adverb, comma, not comma, conjunctive adverb, semicolon. Do you see? So a comma splice is when you use just a comma to join the two sentences. You can't do that. Okay? So there are the two big sentence errors you can make when you incorrectly compound. Here are the two methods of compounding sentences that we're going to use in class. The definition of what a compound sentence is, a reminder that they have to be coordinate, some examples of conjunctive adverbs, some exercises that we just went through, and I think that pretty much covers it. So I hope you found this helpful. If you need more information about any of this information, you've got the book, your handbooks, you've got Purdue OWL, you've got EnglishClub.com. There's lots out there. Okay, so anyway, there you go. Hope you found this of some use, and I'll be talking